Can you feel that in the air? Stick your head out the window. To me, it feels like a chilly breeze on my cheek that might signal a coming season of dismantling. Allow me to paint you a picture of one possible future for Cardano and all of crypto. Midterms are now over, and it's open season for those in Washington who'd like to put crypto in its place. The enforcement against centralized crypto platforms, the lowest hanging fruit, is already well in motion. Next up comes the assault on any crypto platform that can be branded an unregistered securities intermediary. This could be indiscriminate, with only short shrift afforded to pretenses of decentralization. Because billions of dollars are locked in these platforms and whole blockchains have become so focused on DeFi, we might see a wholesale deconstruction of large swaths of the crypto landscape. I don't mean destruction, but I do mean a dismantling of the pervasive use of blockchain as regulatory evasion device. Crypto might have to rebuild itself and find new areas of focus. A new order among the ecosystems would have to form, and this is where I think Cardano could rise like a glowing phoenix out of the ashes and embers of the old order, because Cardano never really embraced those old ways and was actually looking ahead to the future use cases this whole time. Ready? Let's go. Today, we're going to discuss more stern signaling out of Gary Gensler warning crypto platforms about what the SEC intends to do, IOG dropping a video on first principles, Cardano getting blacklisted again in crypto media, this time by Coinbase, an interesting question about whether FTX customer money went to the SEC, a new Cardano NFT portfolio analytics app, and Virtua deciding to postpone a mint due to market conditions. This episode is sponsored by a very unique project called whenidream.io, which was created by Gotthard, who you might know from Cardano, Twitter, or even the comments to these videos. I've always been intrigued by the world of dreams and their connection to a person's reality. With this project, Gotthard is letting everyone see inside his dream world with NFTs featuring all the terrible and wonderful things he sees when he closes his eyes. He says that 20% of the funds raised will go to the Cardano Solution Project, of which Gotthard is a member. They throw a Cardano event during the Bitcoin conference in Miami, and this year Gotthard plans to teach a workshop for young artists to help them mint NFTs on the Cardano blockchain that can then be auctioned off during the Cardano Solution event. Here at the whenidream.io website, you can see that the prices are extremely reasonable, and you can pay an ADA, Disco, or Min token. So check out the NFTs on the website. I think right now at these prices, these are only something like a little more than $5, so very inexpensive. And also follow at Gotthard 12, at Solution Cardano, and at I See When I Dream on Twitter. There might even be a contest announced soon by this account for whoever draws the NFT subtitled Sleeping Chaos. It's your boy, Gary Gensler, trying to ruin your crypto holidays once again. So this is an article from Bloomberg. The title is "The SEC's Crypto Crackdown is Just Getting Started After FTX Blow Up." The subheading here is Chair Gary Gensler compares crypto intermediaries to casinos. So we're used to seeing sort of sensational headlines about crypto in publications that are more focused on the mainstream news and even the mainstream financial news. But I think this one is worth paying attention to. Here's why. Gensler said the agency's patience is wearing thin for digital asset exchanges and other firms that shirk its regulations. The runway is getting shorter to start following rules and register with the agency. The casinos in the Wild West are non-compliant intermediaries. Although he declined to identify firms facing scrutiny or comment on where the FTX probe may go next, Gensler warned about a number of practices that are rampant in the industry. Over the past year and a half, the SEC chief has argued that most tokens are really just unregistered securities trading on the blockchain. He says they must follow the agency's tough trading and investment rules. So the problem now is we could optimistically interpret all of this as being only about centralized crypto institutions. We could say, oh, they're just going after the BlockFis of the world. They're just going after the FTXs of the world. The problem is that it kind of looks like they're on this trajectory where they've got the CFTC has got the Ukidao case. Granted, the CFTC is not the SEC, but they don't care. Once they have this precedent that you can go after the executives who set up the lab entity and then serve those executives because they're token holders also in the DAO that the lab entity handed the DeFi project over to, you can serve the DAO through those founders of the lab entity. Once they've established that this is something they can do, they can pretty much go after any project where a lab entity is founded by founders and then the project is handed over to a DAO. I mean, granted, that's just a district court case in one district, the Northern District of California. But once they've established that this is something they can do, then this language, when he talks about the casinos in the Wild West, when he talks about non-compliant intermediaries, and when he says, as he's been saying for a year and a half, that most tokens are really just unregistered securities, it kind of becomes open season on any platform where there are identifiable founders, even if they were just founders of a lab, blank labs, and that lab handed over the DAO, they might not care. They could just go after everything. I have this strange feeling. The constraint is for them, for the SEC, the constraint is not their own perception of whether or not they can go after, blank class of project in crypto. I think the constraint they're dealing with is just workforce constraints. I think they only have so much staff and they're just picking the very most high profile, low hanging fruit right now. The BlockFis of the world, the FTXs of the world. But once they run out of those centralized platforms, if they still hold this same belief that most tokens are securities, they could pretty easily set their sights on DeFi projects. Some small percentage of you out there right now are saying, that won't happen. DeFi is untouchable. The SEC can't go after them. They're decentralized. We already know from over a year ago, from September of 2021, we already know that that's not the case, that the SEC does not necessarily share that view. Because back in September 2021, I reported on this channel about this story that was revealed, that the SEC was investigating Uniswap Labs. It was reported all over, including the Wall Street Journal right here. SEC probe comes amid heightened scrutiny of fast-growing decentralized markets. Regulators investigate crypto exchange developer Uniswap Labs. This was over a year ago, September 2021. So we already know that the SEC has been investigating the biggest DeFi platform, the most well-known DeFi platform. They've been investigating them already over a year ago. You might also remember something related from just 2 months prior to that we talked about on this channel. Just 2 months prior to the revelations about the SEC investigation into Uniswap, Uniswap removed the synthetics from their front end. And it was reported on like this from Bloomberg. Uniswap restricts fake stock tokens as regulatory scrutiny grows. Move follows warning from SEC's Gensler on synthetic stocks. Guess what? We still have tons of synthetic platforms in crypto. We have all kinds of things going on in crypto that we already know the SEC thinks they can regulate and would be very happy to regulate. I think the big constraint for them is not what they think they're able to regulate. It's, I think, just a personnel concern. It's a workforce concern. The constraint is probably just that they don't have enough people. So they're picking the lowest hanging fruit, the most notable, the most visible fruit first, but eventually, I mean, you got to weigh the chances. How long does it take for them to get to everything else? Here's more from Gensler just yesterday. Until crypto platforms comply with time tested securities laws, risks to investors will persist. It remains a priority of the SEC to use all of our available tools to bring the industry into compliance. You notice he doesn't say the centralized portions of the industry or centralized crypto platforms. And we know they were already investigating the biggest, the most famous decentralized platform over a year ago. Over a year ago, they were already investigating Uniswap. So there are big questions here. Are they only going after the centralized platforms now because of them being the low hanging fruit? Or will this suddenly turn towards the decentralized portions of the ecosystems as well? I think someone who commented on this post would be happy to chime in on whether or not the SEC is willing to go after decentralized projects. Down below, right here, you see a tweet from LBRY. LBRY, of course, is getting crushed by the SEC. They responded to Gensler's post with, "We'll give you the 20 million you're demanding of us if you reply with a clear explanation of how to launch a public blockchain in the United States. This is a serious offer." Of course, Gary Gensler is not going to take them up on that. I don't think Gary, if he does, I'm sure his response would just be, "Oh, just come in and register with us." But I don't think LBRY will agree with Gary Gensler on his prescription for how to do anything involving a blockchain in the United States. Because LBRY, I think, certainly thought they were a decentralized protocol, and they are currently getting crushed into nothingness by the SEC. Just adding to all the unintentional comedy of all of this today, the general counsel of Ripple pointed out something interesting. The SEC admits that FTX customer assets were used to bail out BlockFi. Were those customer assets funneled to the SEC to make payments on the 100 million SEC BlockFi settlement? Did the SEC bother to conduct any due diligence on the source of those funds? So, an interesting question. But I think the more interesting thing to think about is what happens? What happens if 2023 is the year when the SEC decides, hey, we've already done some crushing on centralized crypto platforms. Now is the time when we take all this investigation we've done on Uniswap, and we finally launch our big case against a DeFi platform. What happens if the next SEC case is not a Ripple but a Uniswap? What if that kind of case is announced in Q1, Q2 of 2023? It seems like that changes a lot of things for a lot of blockchains, just like the revelation after the last bull cycle, the 2017 ICO season. At a certain point, everybody figured out, oh, ICOs probably are not legal. This is probably not going to fly with regulators. And the whole ICO thing contracted and shriveled up. What if we get a big SEC case like that? Maybe it's Uniswap, maybe it's somebody else, that makes it very clear that even if you're decentralized, you can't be an intermediary in crypto because the SEC thinks that most tokens are securities. If we get a case like that, we might see a refocusing of crypto, just like we did after the 2017 ICO season. ICOs dried up. What if what if DeFi platforms equally shrivel up? Sure, some will survive, and I mean the answer is going to be, yeah, you just have to come in and register. Like you just have to follow our normal rules. That was kind of the same thing with ICOs. The prescription for ICOs was, hey, you can totally do offerings. They just have to abide by all of our SEC rules. And the result was actually just the vast majority of the ICO scene disappearing and crypto having to refocus on something new. I'm offering that that could easily happen this time as well. DeFi could end up very strongly in the crosshairs of federal regulators, and crypto might have to refocus. I think a blockchain that's currently already in the top 10 without focusing on DeFi could be the one that rises from the ashes like a phoenix and all of a sudden soars in this new environment where all of crypto is trying to figure out how to focus on something other than DeFi, where this blockchain was focused on the rest of the stuff, the rest of the forward-looking things, the use cases outside of DeFi, RealFi, and everything else. I think a blockchain ecosystem like that is the one that soars out of the ashes. Here's an example of exactly what I mean. While a huge portion, a huge swath of the crypto landscape is pretty much just focused on how they can do even more DeFi, how they can get more total value locked in their protocols, how they can be even bigger in DeFi. Maybe there's a little bit of NFT focus, maybe there's a lot of NFT focus, but almost every other blockchain ecosystem is much more heavily focused on DeFi than Cardano. What is Cardano focused on? Well, today, IOG dropped this 40-minute long video where Charles and Agalos sat down and talked about the last 6 years of first principles based research by IOG. That's what they want to spend 40 minutes talking about and presenting to the community, not how they can somehow sweep more total value locked into their DeFi platforms. They want to talk about first principles based research and actually pushing the science forward. I think a better name for certain parts of DeFi would actually be GreedFi. Cardano certainly does not seem interested in GreedFi. And maybe that's why we also don't show up in a lot of industry publications, including the one we covered yesterday and including this one from Coinbase. Coinbase tells us this is a 70-minute read. It's 57 pages, a lot of information in here, a lot about Ethereum, a lot about Bitcoin. But if you hit Control F and search for Cardano, you're going to find out it doesn't show up a single time. Meanwhile, in Cardano, people are just building away like always, including this new Cardano NFT mobile portfolio analytics app called Poki. If you're big into NFTs, if you love NFTs, you can get this on iOS or Android now. Finally, in Cardano metaverse news, it looks like Virtua is holding off on their mint for Cardano land plots in their new Monster Zone. They say, hey, everyone, due to current market conditions, the mint for Cardano land plots in the Monster Zone will be postponed. We'll keep you updated as soon as we have more info. I think the people at Virtua are very smart, and I think they're smart enough to know when to hold off when the market isn't quite right to be launching something like this. So I think it is very telling, though, of where the market is for metaverse projects right now and for probably for assets in crypto in general. So probably a smart call by Virtua. I hope everybody is having a fantastic week. Obviously, this is the lead up to a big holiday in a large part of the world. That's happening on Sunday. And because of the holiday, there will not be an episode for the following Monday, which is the 26th. So no episode on the 26th. But I hope if this is a holiday weekend for you, you're going to have a great one. And I'll talk to you soon.